What's going on, guys? It's been a long time since our last podcast. I had a fight. Shit happens, but we're back. Episode 103. I almost said 104. College football, week 5. Very weird to be on week 5 already. It feels like we are week 3, 4-ish time, but hey, it is what it is. We got a lot of football still to go. The usual host, myself, Grayson Fisher, with me, the one and only Mr. Zachary Watts.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's dive on into this game, some of the drama, and of course, a draft per usual. Our first game's actually coming to you live Friday night, 9 o'clock on FS1 between number 10 Utah traveling to number 19 Oregon State. Oregon State coming in at a -3 favorite. Oregon State also just received their first loss this past weekend playing at Washington State, who is a team that is not getting talked about enough, in my opinion. We look at these two teams, first thing that comes into mind is the quarterbacks. I don't know if Cam Rising's ever coming back. It feels like we're not receiving enough information on that. It could partially be horrible journalism on my end of not knowing. I don't think he's back yet. But their backup, Nate Johnson, doing a pretty good job, man. Doing a pretty
Yeah.
good job. They had a pretty good nail biter win against UCLA last week. He's 31 for 49 with 398 yards and 2 touchdowns. They're running the ball well. They're doing a good job of moving the ball around enough that there's not like a specific guy carrying the team. And I think that's due to the fact that Cam Rising is able to fill that role and be that guy. On the other end of things, you have DJU, who's been looking good at sometimes, bad at sometimes, and there's this whole like internet rumor slash like beef with his dad and Dabo Sweeney. That's like, was DJU the issue or was Dabo and his system the issue? So there's a little weird thing going on there. I truthfully don't know too much about these teams. I know Utah is very well coached, very well put together. Oregon State's going on a nice little run that they haven't been on in a while. It's an interesting game. I really don't have much more to say on that. I don't know enough about these two teams to really give my input. The only thing I will say is if I had a gun to my head, I'm gonna pick Utah. And the sun just came in brighter than them over. I'm gonna pick Utah because their front seven is very legitimate, and you don't really see a front seven like that in the Pac-12. I would say them and Oregon are the only two where you see like a very good front seven on the defense. So I could see them winning that way. It is at Oregon State, which is I heard not a very beautiful place. It's very rainy a lot, so it could be low key sad boy vibes. Um, but overall, like I said, I don't have too much confidence in this game. If I had to give a pick, I'm gonna take Utah +3.
Yeah. Um, Starting off on your comments about DJ and his transfer to Oregon State, I think one of the biggest issues that forced him out of Clemson was primarily just the expectations that were set on him. You know, when you go through a string of quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, who were such high caliber players coming out of Clemson and ended up being NFL quarterbacks that play at the highest level, you know, it's kind of hard to take a step down DJ. And that's no disrespect to DJ because he is an extremely talented quarterback and we've seen him perform that way. But it's essentially just an impossible battle to win in that regard. Like to just be able to put out that quality of quarterback talent year in and year out, you kind of see the issue. And, you know, in the same hand, we see how Cade Klubnik's performed this year. And, you know, I don't think he's performed any better than DJ did last year, in my opinion. You know, he's still kind of adjusting to the system and learning things, and they're going to continue to get better because Dabo is a good coach. I'm not going to take that away from him. They are a good football team. But, you know, it was kind of one of those situations where it just didn't fit him. And I feel like he made the right choice in transferring to another program. He went to a Pac-12 program, which better suited him and the program. You know, I feel like Oregon State's always kind of had a talented roster. They've always had a great O-line, and that is especially true this year. Their O-line is amazing. And then the fact that he transferred in there, he's able to make an immediate impact. So you love to see that out of DJ. That's an amazing thing for him. I'm happy for him. In terms of this game, though, you know, Utah's been able to do enough up to this point with their backup quarterback, but they were number 10 in the country with the expectation that Cam Rising was going to come back and lead them. So, you know, you did make a comment about their front seven being one of the better teams in the quote unquote Pac-12. I know the Pac-12 is kind of dissipated at this point, so it's kind of hard to talk about them. But with the remaining Pac-12 team in Oregon State, you know, I think their O-line has the capabilities to keep Utah in check. You know, right now, Utah is letting up over 200 yards passing per game. And I know that seems down compared to years before, but you got to remember, this is the first year of college football where we have a running clock after first downs. And personally, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. Coaches are complaining about it.
Everyone,
like, yeah.
No one likes it, but the people, but the NCAA and the people
Because
making the money off the commercials.
Yeah, of course. Because for those of you who aren't that familiar or aren't paying that close attention, essentially what they did was they made the rule change for running clock in an attempt to speed pace of play, but game times are still taking up the same amount of TV time, but now double the commercials are being ran in place of that. So now you have half the amount of football plays being run throughout the game, and now we just get more commercials. So as a fan, I don't really see the win in that. Obviously, if it's still putting money in their pocket, I get it. Business is business at the end of the day, and we can't really sit here and argue with it. I mean, I guess we could revolt at the end of the day. You know, this is America. But regardless, in terms of this game, I do think Oregon State, led by DJ at QB, can win this game. You know, they had a tough game last week. I know it was their first loss of the year, but Washington State's quarterback, I forget his name right now. It'll come back to me. But he's playing like a high.
Nate Johnson.
Yeah, Nate. No. Not Utah's quarterback, Washington State's.
Oh, Cameron Ward.
Cameron Ward.
The incarnate word transfer from last year.
Yeah, dude is playing like a bona fide Heisman candidate right now.
Nobody's talking about him.
No one. But we'll get into that later when we come up with our own Heisman rankings later on in this podcast. But I do think they had a tough outing last time, still kept it close, lost 38-35, despite all the remarkable plays that were made in that game. I see them bouncing back and getting a huge win over Utah, still without Cam Rising, and it was kind of just brushed by up to this point.
You're going Oregon State -3?
Yeah, we'll take it with the points. Might as well. If I think they're winning, they might as well.
Awesome. Our next game coming in. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep track of all the picks as well as
good.
the Heisman picks. Our next game is another another Pac-12 game. This game had a lot of hype coming into it, and the hype is slowly starting to derail and come out of the media. We're looking at number 8 USC traveling to Colorado. This game a noon kickoff Saturday on Fox. This is a noon kickoff for Eastern time, but it'll be an 11 a.m. game on Saturday there on the West Coast. Zach, give our odds come in USC -21.5. Zach, you start us off in this one.
Yeah, so essentially, I don't want to say Colorado was exposed because that's not the case for this. I believe the true issue that occurred was Colorado played a quality opponent and they just got shown what they really were. Like the media had done a great job of hyping them up and making them seem like they could compete with anybody, but that's just not the case. We talked about at the beginning of the year coming in, Deion was going to make an immediate impact, but the problem is they play one of the toughest schedules in all of college football. And that is, by all means, the utmost respect, but you're not going to take a 1-11 program, play the toughest schedule in football with a bunch of transfers and win football games like that. It's just not happening. USC is a legitimate college football playoff contender with Caleb Williams, who is arguably the best quarterback in this draft class without a doubt, in my opinion. Dude just makes unbelievable plays, but people are still giving Colorado a chance, and rightfully so. One of the biggest issues we've talked about USC all year is, can their defense consistently stop teams, or is Caleb Williams going to have to put up 56 points a game? Unfortunately, Caleb Williams will probably put up 56 points in this game, and I don't know if USC is going to be able. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter, because even if they put up 60-something points, Colorado's not going to be able to go blow for blow like that. You're just not going to be a team like that. Look, I know Shedur's an unbelievably talented quarterback. He makes some unbelievable reads. He makes the plays necessary. He's a dog. There's no doubt about that. Deion's a great coach. We're not here to talk about any of that. But with the game at hand, they're at a severe disadvantage. You're missing your number one playmaker on the offensive and defensive side of the ball in Travis Hunter. And even though he texted Deion and said, I need to play this game, Deion was smart enough to say, your future's more important. Sit out. We're going to lose by 40 anyway. That's just how it is. I do think Colorado will put up points because, I mean, if USC was giving up, 35 points to San Jose State, they're going to give up 21 plus to Colorado. That's just how it is. Personally, I don't see Colorado stopping Caleb Williams once. If you're USC's punter, you may as well just enjoy the ride because you may not even step on the field, in my opinion. So
So what's your pick for the game?
I'm gonna take USC minus 21. No. I'm gonna take Colorado plus 21. They will put up points. They
Yeah,
just can't.
so I'm also in the exact same boat as you. I'm going to take Colorado plus 21.5. Yes, everyone's talking about that Oregon game. Some points you made that I'm going to piggyback off. One, I'm tired of hearing like, wow, Travis Hunter really played that. If Travis Hunter played that game or not, they were still going to get killed. Maybe they would have scored one more touchdown. Oregon is just a way more solidified team. They have an actual defense, which is, like I said, them and who's the other team I was just saying? Them and Utah are the only two teams in the Pac-12 that have like a in legitimate defense. I would say Washington is like solid, but I would say Oregon's a very good defense. They're a very good defense coordinator, very good defensive front. The other thing is, dude, this team's been together for a while. They're vets. Yeah, Colorado got quote unquote exposed. That shit happens. It's not their fault that ESPN was sucking them off and hyping them up and all these other things were happening as well. The other thing is USC's offense is absolutely tremendous and their defense is absolutely butt cheeks. Okay. And the thing is, their defense has great defensive players. They're some of the best defensive players in college football. They are just a terrible unit. I don't know if it's their chemistry together. I don't know if it's their coordinator. They are not a good unit. They let San Jose State put 28 on them at home. Okay, then we blow out Nevada, we blow out Stanford. I understand those games look good. Their first away game, they're at Arizona State. They only win 42-28, and they had to put 15 up in the fourth to win that game. So it shows that, yeah, they're very comfortable playing at home. They're not as comfortable playing away. And if you're like, well, Arizona State at home, blah, blah, blah. Arizona State beat Southern Utah by 3 at home, lost to Oklahoma State by 12 at home, whose only win is over Arizona State. And they lost to Fresno State 29-0 at home. Okay, come on. This is not a team that's like bringing the heat. I do think USC is going to win. I think they're going to win by probably like 17. I don't think they're going to win by 21.5. They don't have the defense that Oregon does. And if you watch that game or at least broke it down, Oregon's pressure on Shador was unbelievable. USC can't mimic that same pressure. They might be able to get it later in the game, like when they're beat up and broken, but Colorado's going to come out and they're going to score points in the beginning. And I don't see USC pulling away late. I just see them, like you said, it's going to be like 14-14, then 21-14, then 28-21, and then they're going to slowly start chopping. They're not going to run it up on them like Oregon did. It's also a home game. It's going to be sold out. You saw how many celebrities they're bringing in for this game. I'm not taking Colorado win. I'm taking Colorado covering. I'm going to also go Colorado plus 21.5. I still think they're going to not look too hot, but it being at home with USC not playing well away, as well as USC defense being extremely suspect, I do see this big game gonna be favoring Colorado a little.
Yeah. By the way, one more point I want to bring up just because we were on the topic of Oregon for a little bit. I love how Bo Nix suddenly became this top quarterback prospect once he left the SEC. Mm-hmm. Does that not tell you anything? Does that not tell you anything? That should be the biggest red flag of anything going into the draft. Like, oh yeah, this dude played amazing. Oh, what happened when he played in the SEC? Absolute dog shit.
I think it's so funny when people are like, Bo Nix was in college the same time as Justin Herbert. Isn't that insane? It's like, well, Herbert was a 5th-year senior and Bo Nix was a true freshman. So no, it's not that insane.
Yeah, not that great. Now, if you were to tell me that the Miami Hurricanes tight end started his freshman year of college during the Obama administration, I would say that's a little insane. And guess what? It's true. Yeah. So that's a little absurd to me.
Yeah, that one's crazy. Yeah.
This guy's got highlights during the Obama administration.
I definitely think Bo Nix is a better quarterback than he was at Auburn. I just don't think I do think that the level of play is benefiting him a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those saying like, oh, well, he had to make that switch to Oregon to better develop just the same way that Jalen Hurts left Alabama to go better develop as a quarterback at Oklahoma. Oklahoma had a perennial offensive coordinator and QB coach that was able to develop him into the passer that he became today. Bo Nix just straight up said, fuck this. I'm going to go play on a contending team in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'm just gonna play on a team that's better than mine.
Yeah, I'm gonna go play on a team that's better than mine. And hey, we don't have to face a schedule that makes me want to kill myself on a
Yeah.
weekly basis. So yeah,
Dude,
by all
Auburn's
means.
schedule is so brutal, dude. They have one of the most brutal college football schedules.
Yeah.
But we're finally getting away from the Pac-12. This game has a lot of fun potential to it, in my personal opinion. We have number 24 Kansas traveling to Texas to play the number 3 Longhorns. This game is between a battle of the undefeateds at 4-0. It's 3:30 on ABC this Saturday. Our
With adventure
odds come
experts from
in
Capital One, you earn
Texas
2 miles on
Texas minus 16 and a half. That's just straight up disrespectful, in my opinion. Man, I mean, there's another game we're gonna look at. Quarterbacks. Jalen Daniels versus Quinn Ewers. Jalen Daniels, for anyone that doesn't know who he is so much fun to watch play football. He can run the ball, he can throw the ball, he's a good deep ball, he's an accurate ball. For some reason, this Kansas team ain't getting the recognition they should. Devin Neal at running back, he's a dog. He had a great year last year. He's having a phenomenal year this year. 57 carries, 400 yards, and 5 touchdowns. This team is good. Lance Leipold is a damn good coach. He had offers to go to Wisconsin. He had offers to go to, all these other big schools that were looking this past season. What's the other one? Nebraska, like schools like that. He said no. I'm building a culture. I'm building things at Kansas. They got new uniforms. They got new facilities. They're 4-0 for the first time in back-to-back years since like 1987. He's got it going over there. On the other side, Steve Sarkisian, one of the very hundreds of millions of former Saban minions running out there. They're having a good year. Quinn Ewers having yeah, you could say a Heisman level year, 72 for 112, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's running the ball a little bit with his feet too. They got a big road win at Alabama, but I don't want that to look over the fact that they've also had a couple moments this year where they don't look too hot. Versus Rice took them a little bit to get moving. Wyoming, they were only up 10-7 at halftime, and they did look really good at Baylor this past weekend. This Texas team is very similar to that USC team, and where like they have over the past couple years have had the best players on the field. They just didn't play together the best, if that makes sense. I don't know as of pick. I think this is Kansas's first big away game, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to triple check this. Yeah, they hosted Missouri State, Illinois, and BYU. They played at Nevada, and they only beat Nevada by 7. They only beat BYU by 11. I really want to go in here and say yes. Just minus 16 and a half is a lot of points, dude. It's a lot of points. I'm going to let you go before I give a pick.
Yeah. So the way I kind of look at this game is it all depends on what type of Texas team shows up. Steve Sarkisian could show up to the game pissed drunk and not care and have not a care in the world and just absolutely shit the bed. Quinn Ewers could throw 3 interceptions. It is college football. Anything can happen any given Saturday. That's just kind of the way the college football world works. Look, we know what we're getting out of the Kansas Jayhawks. JT Daniels is a solid quarterback. The problem is the team's a little bit more diminished than they were last year. Jalen Daniels, sorry. Jalen Daniels, excuse me, is a talented quarterback. We know this. Can do it all in terms of running ability and passing ability. He has all the tools. The problem is the Jayhawks are just not the team they were last year. Look, they are getting better. They are improving. They're no longer the dumpster fire that the Jayhawks used to be, rock chalk, baby. It is what it is. But, this Texas team is looking to play for playoff contentions. Like they have that goal in mind. I don't know what their schedule's looking like, in my opinion. Let me see. Actually, this could be a trap game because they do play Oklahoma. They do play Oklahoma next week. And for those of you that don't know what I mean by trap game is, look, just playing a bad team is not necessarily a trap game. A trap game is when the immediate week following is a tougher level of competition that would sway your attention.
Yeah.
And the problem with college football is, especially with week 3, is everyone scheduled terrible opponents week 3. And the problem is not everyone showed up in week 3. You show up and you beat your opponent, that's fine. You did what you were supposed to. You don't show up, you will lose a game. And the reason why I view this as a trap game is if Texas does not show up against Kansas, they will lose. I know Kansas has been in a lot of close games, but because they've been in a lot of close games, they've still won. They know how to win the ugly battles. They like to get scrappy. They like to get in your face and just make it a bloodbath, make it as ugly as possible. They don't care. A win is a win. And it is, truthfully. So I am still going to take Texas, but I am completely staying away from any type of spread in this. I don't trust it at all. To take this caliber of an upset would be absolutely just insanity, but it would throw the college football world into a complete whirly-dirly. But regardless, I'm gonna stick to my gut. I'm gonna take Texas in this one.
Yeah, I'm going Texas money line as well. I do agree with you that it could be a trap game. Dude, I listen, I'm not calling it an upset, and I wouldn't even be that surprised if Kansas comes in and barely loses this game. It's just it's very hard for me to say that, especially with it being away. And especially with how packed this Texas team and this Texas stadium is going to be. If Jalen Daniels can't get his feet moving, they're not going to sling the rock down their throat. I'm just more confident Texas winning this game. I really am, especially if it was at Kansas, I would take Kansas plus 16.5, 100%. But I'm not doing it at Texas. It's just too hard.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Our next game's a really fun game. We got number 13 LSU traveling to number 20 Ole Miss. Both these teams coming in at 3-1. This game's 6:00 on ESPN. Our favorite is LSU minus 2.5. Zach, I'm gonna actually let you start us off with this one.
Yeah, so my biggest thing is Ole Miss just cannot win big games when it matters. Plain and simple. Love Lane Kiffin as a guy. He's a very people person. He's very college environment friendly.
He's a guy's guy.
Yeah, he's a guy's guy, especially for the college football world. Nothing but respect for him in that regard. But I just don't view him as like a top caliber coach in college. And that's simple. Look, I know he comes from the Saban family tree of minions that we discussed. He's got, I guess he's been in championship level locker rooms to know how a championship program is run. Unfortunately, they just don't perform like that. Look, no disrespect to the level of talent they have on the field. I know Jackson Dart is a great quarterback, or a good quarterback, excuse me. I tend to throw the word great out there too much, but he is a good quarterback for Ole Miss. He does make plays necessary. But when I look at this LSU team, just because they lost to Florida State, people immediately threw them under the bus. They were like, oh, this is an overrated team. This isn't anything to talk about. It's just constantly SEC overhype year in, year out. Y'all have to realize LSU was projected to finish top 2 in the SEC. Top 2. Like, it's them and Georgia, and they'd be battling with Alabama. So they're considered one of the better teams. Now, this is Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, this is Jaden.
Yeah, sorry. Too many J Daniels in college. We need to fix that. I think that should be illegal.
We need more G Fishers and Z Wattses.
Yeah. See, what you do is you force them to play all you have a Daniels playoff at the end of the year. Just don't forget the college
football. The loser goes by their middle name.
Yeah, the loser has to get name changed to whatever the winner decides.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. But I personally think this Daniels would lead his team to victory over all the other Daniels because he is a bona fide superstar. This kid makes plays with his legs. And when he's not trying to hurdle people and get absolutely Batista bombed through the turf, he can complete a pass or two. So with that being said, look, am I the biggest fan of Brian Kelly? No, but he's a good coach. I'm not going to sit here and say he's not a good coach. He's in the SEC. He's recruiting solid players. He's putting a program together. They're not there yet. I think it's year 2, 3?
Year 2, yeah.
Yeah, year 2. So for year 2 to already be considered one of the top programs in the SEC, I'd say you're on the right track there. But knowing Brian Kelly's record, he's probably always going to fall short of any expectation you ever give him. So just take that what you will. That is the Kelly bloodline. So with that being said, you got the battle of who wants to fuck their team the most in terms of coaching ability. I think Lane Kiffin's going to win that battle, in my opinion. I think you're just going to have 1 or 2 plays here or there where you just doesn't make sense or you don't understand it. And LSU is probably going to capitalize on those mistakes and end up winning this game. I think they're also going to cover the spread, in my opinion, probably by like 7 to 10 points. So give me LSU in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short and sweet because I have pretty much the same mindset as you. Listen, I'm going to speak on Ole Miss first. Lane Kiffin's that guy. He's good at getting recruits, but the Ole Miss is it being at Ole Miss doesn't make it like a factor for me. You never hear anyone say, oh, wow, I played at Ole Miss. It was scary. Like they just don't have that SEC haunting vibe of like an Auburn or an LSU or Georgia or Florida. They just don't have that. I mean, you even
at least one Mississippi school does, and that's Mississippi State, but they had to use cowbells. So
Yeah,
like that's kind of illegal.
but Ole Miss that should be illegal.
Yeah, that's illegal.
You heard Rabik talk about it too. He's like, Ole Miss is like yeah, they're gonna sell out their stadium, and yeah, it's gonna be like a little scary, but they're not a 12th man. I would say they're not like a huge factor to the game being played. Jackson Dart is very good. He's a very good quarterback. He's not great. And the other thing is they rely too much on him. And they came into this year, they got a Mississippi State transfer, they got the Oklahoma State Spencer Sanders transfer, and they had Jackson Dart, and they're like, wow, there's this huge quarterback battle. And then Jackson Dart balled out against whoever the fuck nobody school was their first game, Mercer. And they were like, this is our guy. Kid's good. He's very good. He puts up a lot of all purpose yards, but they rely on him too much to the extent where he's their leading passer and their leading rusher. How the hell are you an SEC team and your quarterback's your leading rusher? The only way that would be excusable is if he's fucking Cam Newton, and he's not Cam Newton. They're going to get hit with a defense that is extremely underrated, in my opinion. And this LSU team is going to hit Jackson Dart a lot, and it's not going to be soft. They are going to drive through him every single play they can. They're going to be, I would not be surprised if a different guy blitzes every single play. They are going to kill this kid with pressure. On the other end, name one defensive player on Ole Miss. I can't name a single guy that they've been talking about this whole season. And that's the Ole Miss every single year. The way I look at Ole Miss is they're the best 9-3 team in college football. They lose their 3 top 15 teams, and then they win the 9 games they're supposed to win, and they barely lose to Alabama. That is Ole Miss, in my opinion. LSU is going to go in there. They're not going to kill them. Like, it's not going to be like 56-10, but it's going to be a good like 35-14, 35-17, like your big brothers in town kind of game. Jaden Daniels, what's another thing that makes him really good, Zach? He barely turns the ball over. 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 2 picks, and one of them came against Florida State. So, I mean, like, it's not like Ole Miss's defense is going to give them opportunities either. I think it's going to be fun because it's an SEC game, but there's nothing in this game that gives me hope that Ole Miss can rise to this occasion. I'm going to take LSU -2.5. And before we dive into our last 2 games, Zach, I actually have a question for you because I saw this on my TikTok, and I completely forgot to ask you. If you're Ole Miss, what are you doing about Lane Kiffin? Do you keep rocking with him and extend him after this year, or do you start looking for other options? Because he hasn't done anything bad. I think he's gotten 8 to 9 wins, maybe 10 one year, but he hasn't elevated them past what they've been, in my opinion.
Here's the biggest thing people have to look at when deciding whether or not you're going to get rid of your coach, and that's who is going to replace him. In my opinion, I don't see the coaching carousel coming this offseason being anything spectacular or wild to where you feel like you can replace him and be any better than you already were. We've seen it countless of times with programs before where it's like, you've reached the expectations we had for you, and now we give you new expectations and you're not reaching them. Well, yeah, you knew what you were getting, and now you want better, but you don't have better available. So you're kind of stuck in limbo, college football limbo, where you don't really know what you're doing at this point. I think it'd be extremely foolish for Ole Miss to move beyond Lane Kiffin. Right now, things seem to be very steady. I know the fans probably want more out of it, but, are you willing to risk losing everything when Lane Kiffin leaves for a chance to pick up some, G5 coach or some NFL coach that gets fired? Like, I don't really see that being all that worth it, in my opinion, especially now, right now, the college football world's in a big swing. Momentum is going all sorts of ways. We don't know how things are going to be a year from now, 2 years from now. Heck, a 9-3 team could end up being a college football playoff team a couple years down the road. And then you get rid of Lane Kiffin and you're no longer making 9-3 every year. You're going to sit there going, oh my God, I really wish we had Lane Kiffin back right now so we could lose in like the semifinals of the college football playoff instead of every year going like 7-6.
Yeah.
So like pick your poison. Like, honestly, in my opinion, you stick with Lane, you keep the people happy. You're going to constantly bring in recruits, and hey, maybe a year or 2 down the line, he signs some insane recruiting class and ends up building them into a national title program. You don't know. We don't know. I don't see the risk really paying off if you do get rid of him, because I don't know who would replace him, in all honesty.
I agree. I don't think he's the guy for them for longevity wise, but I think he's the guy for them for the foreseeable future. Like you said, getting 9 wins in the SEC is good, dude. Like we're not saying Lane's a bad coach. We're saying Lane's not the guy to take them past that, you know?
Yeah.
And like you said, they get good recruits. And the thing I think that is very important, and I think that's one reason why Mike Norvell is having so much success. And you're seeing other coaches like the guy at Washington State, who's a former Wisconsin guy, I can't remember his name. He's having good success. Is they're fitting the culture provided to them. One reason why I don't think Willie Taggart worked at Florida State is he tried to bring in this like whack, weird culture, and it wasn't Florida State fitting. Lane Kiffin is Ole Miss. Like he's a good Southern boy who likes to party and have a good time, but he also gets good recruits and they play competitive football. Like he fits the Ole Miss like agenda. I mean, who was before him? Hugh Freeze, who's at Auburn. He's the same kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like that. It's hard to find a guy that's going to fit like that. And you're right. We talk a lot about like life in the circle of football. I feel like it's the same thing with coaches. 2 years ago, we had like 15 coaching changes in Power Five football. Now it's like, all right, all those just happened so recently. It's going to be another year to 3 years until we get a big burst like that again. So I think for this next 2 to 3 years, you rock with Lane, and then you don't get rid of him, but you just see what's out there. You put your toe in the water. Maybe it's not Lane. Maybe you just need to get an amazing defensive coordinator, let him run the defense, and then just let Lane keep running the offense, and you're good. But there's something needs to be changed there if they want to take that next step. And who knows? Maybe they go out there and they whoop LSU. They win out the rest of their schedule and they make us look stupid. Who knows? But I just think that for right now, Ole Miss should be content with what they got.
I agree.
Our next game is actually College Game Day for the first time ever in the sport of football, shall I say. College Game Day is going to North Carolina for number 11 Notre Dame, coming off of a really tough last play of the game loss because he only had 10 defenders on the field versus Ohio State, going to number 17 Duke, 4-0, undefeated, never lost.
Anthony Nelson.
ABC at 7:30. Zach, this is a game that I don't think we would have thought would have been College Game Day. Yeah, Notre Dame coming in at a -6 favorite. You look at that Notre Dame Ohio State game. My takeaway is one, I agree with Lou Holtz. Ohio State didn't win the game. Like they didn't win the game. They just took advantage of the mistake of Notre Dame. Notre Dame played better football that game. The other thing is a lot of issues we've seen in the past, at least recently with Notre Dame, is they're able to win the easy blowouts and they can't win the wars. And I think that game last weekend, even though they lost, showed that this team is a little different and they're down to get in the ugly wars. Also, dude, why is nobody talking about Sam Hartman? Is it just me? I feel like everybody's only talking about the out west quarterbacks and then like Jaden Daniels and Travis Hunter. Excuse me, Jordan Travis. Sam Hartman has 1,200 yards with 14 touchdowns and no picks. Like, dude, he is balling out. On the other end, I like Duke. They're very well coached. Their defense is good. They get a lot of turnovers. Their offense is so unpredictable to me, though, and not in a good way. Riley Leonard's solid. He's good. He relies too much on his feet, which I think this Notre Dame team's going to shut down right away. And also, Notre Dame's defense is good, but they rely on turning the ball over, fourth down stops. Sam Hartman doesn't turn the ball over. And that's why I think that I'm going to take Notre Dame -6. Listen, I actually want Duke to win this game. I want Anthony Nelson to make it to the ACC championship. I want Duke to arise to the occasion. I think it's sick. I just don't think that they're going to beat this Notre Dame team. I think this Notre Dame team is very good. I think they're underappreciated. I'm not even a Notre Dame fan. I just think that the boring offense that Duke runs, where they rely too much on Riley Leonard to run, is going to get shut down. He doesn't have like a wicked arm that's going to sling the rock. Watch the Clemson game. He ran for like 250 yards. That's why they won that game. And, 4 turnovers, and this Notre Dame team is disciplined with the ball. I think this Notre Dame team is going to go in there. I do see it being a close game. I don't think Notre Dame's going to kill them, but I just think Notre Dame is just better. Duke is in the beginning stages of starting something. Notre Dame has been at that something for a while. So it's just going to come down to expertise and experience and being there, comfortable being there before.
Yeah, I like all the points you made. Hard to disagree about anything, especially with a team like Notre Dame who has been here before. They play high level competition week in, week out. They're used to these type of games. And you especially play better when you come off a tough defeat. Everyone tells you would way rather play someone that won last week than a team that lost last week. Because the team that lost last week has something to prove and they're pissed. They do not want to lose again. A team that wins, kind of like a feeding alligator. Once you've already ate, you get lazy, you get complacent. You may be able to take them by surprise. With that being said, with everything being in the favor of Notre Dame, I'm riding with Anthony Nelson. I'm riding with Duke. No one gave you a chance except for Grayson Fisher for you to beat Clemson at home. Well, guess what? You're back at home. You're at College game day.
Night game.
You got a night game in. No, it's not Chapel Hill, is it? I'm mistaken.
No, it's I think
Or
they're
Chapel Hill.
the Wallace Wade Stadium in Durham.
Durham. You're in Durham, North Carolina. They're on your turf. Them Christian boys don't know about the boonies. So why don't you show them a thing or two? My bold prediction for this game is Anthony Nelson will have a sack. He will sack Sam Hartman. I am leaning towards that sack may result in a turnover. But I'll keep it tame. But Nelson, you will be getting a sack this Saturday in front of the world. They know about your character, but do they know about the dog and Anthony Nelson? I don't think they do.
I'll find out.
They about to find out. Big dog's got to eat.
I do think that it being at Duke, it's their first college game day. It's going to be packed. Yes, Duke football fans, they're newly to the sport, but you've seen Duke basketball fans, and if they just bring that heat, something might happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, Zion Williamson is not at tight end.
Yeah.
But
I would put him at the end, bro. Are you kidding me? I'd want him trying to tackle a quarterback.
Hell no, you put him at tight end.
And just let him fucking freak.
Dude, he's 6'10" with a 40-inch vert. Who the fuck is going to take a jump ball from him?
No, that's facts.
He's literally gonna put his nuts on a DB's head, and they're just gonna be like, "Well, that we tried, we did our best." But regardless, give me Duke covering at least. They will cover. I have a feeling in my heart that Nelson's gonna show up, and the Blue Devils are gonna win this game.
Our last game is our only SEC. No, excuse me. We had an SEC one. It's another SEC matchup. We have unranked South Carolina traveling to Knoxville to play the 21 ranked Tennessee Volunteers. This is another 7:30 game on the SEC network. Tennessee coming in at a shocking 11.5 favorites. I'm going to tell you, I'm having it as it is. Give me USC plus 11.5. Excuse me, US of C at 11.5. I think that this team is very good. I think they're an offensive line away from being undefeated this year, including beating at Georgia. I think Spencer Rattler's playing very good, which is very weird to say. I also think this Tennessee team is extremely overrated. I think Joe Milton is a little overrated. He has great tools, but he doesn't do the right things. And they don't really have that like 1-2 punch and receiver they had last year, and it's starting to show. They don't have it's 3rd and 8. I need to hit somebody. Who am I going to, guy? Like, that's my guy. And I feel like that situation is really starting to hurt them. Their defense also doesn't do anything that like shocks me. And on the other end, South Carolina's defense is extremely good. The only thing South Carolina is bad at is their O-line. And that's the only way I can see Tennessee coming in. But if you look at South Carolina's 2 losses, it's UNC, who had a very phenomenally well-played defensive line, and Georgia, who had the best defensive line in college football. Outside of that, they looked great. I mean, yeah, they played Furman, who gives a shit, but they beat Mississippi State, who is a solid team. They look good. I don't think they're going to go into Knoxville and clap them, but I think they're going to win. If not, they're going to at least cover 11.5. The other thing is we talking about there's not like a solidified guy on their wide receiver roster for Tennessee. There is in South Carolina an Xavier Legette. He leads the country in receptions with 27. He also has 556 yards and 3 touchdowns. You will get Legette moused. He's extremely good, extremely reliable. He's been the favorite guy for Spencer Rattler. And I don't see this Tennessee defense going in there and like crushing them. I mean, you look at Tennessee, they let Florida put 29 on them. And then all their other games were like close, you know? So, I mean, UTSA they whooped up on, but I do think the environment at Tennessee is good. They're one of the biggest stadiums in college football. They bring a lot of heat. I just don't think they're as dominant and as run through your face, Marshawn Lynch again and again and again and again and again and again and again, over and over and over as they think they are. I think USC goes in there and at least covers the spread of 11.5.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that play a factor into this game is this South Carolina defense. They're giving up 317 passing yards per game, which is not ideal for an SEC school, especially with how kind of numbers have been skewed this year, giving the pace of play. So I think all the experts and analysts have this being like Joe Milton's breakout game. They think because of the weak secondary in South Carolina that Joe Milton's finally going to be able to sling the rock. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that Joe Milton's a turnover-prone QB. That's just not the case. He only has 1 turnover on the year. But at the same time, if you keep airing the ball out, you will make mistakes. You will run into a problem or two. And all South Carolina needs is 1 to 2 turnovers to take this game over. Look, if I'm being honest, I haven't been the biggest fan of Spencer Rattler through the years, since his I think it was like QB1 or Elite 11 or whatever. Yeah, QB1, whatever show he was on, kind of showed who he was. I wasn't the biggest fan of not necessarily his character, but just like how he was as like a leader for a football team. But I really think he's grown into that role, especially this year. We never saw the growth of him in the early years at South Carolina or Oklahoma. Excuse me. He transferred to South Carolina. When he was at Oklahoma, everyone made him out to be, the next blue chip recruit. He's supposed to be the best quarterback we'd ever seen with arm talent. And he still has all those tools, except now he has the mental to follow it. He's not making the stupid errant throws that he used to make. He's always hitting his receivers. He's making the right reads when he has to, when he needs to. He's playing like a solid quarterback, which is what you need from this South Carolina team. Me personally, with this Tennessee squad, the only reason I'm not giving them that much credit is because they haven't done anything to really surprise me. The fact that you are playing Florida and I expect Florida to beat you as an unranked team says a lot about your program. Says a lot about because I hate the Gators. I hate them, but bias aside, I may or may not know a thing or two about college football. Maybe. I don't get paid for it, but I may know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two happen here and again. So with that being said, I think this is going to play out the same way. Except this time you're not playing Graham Mertz or a dominant rushing attack from Florida. You're going to have to deal with the passing attack through the air between Spencer Rattler and Leggett Mouse.
Leggett Mouse.
And gun to my head, couldn't name you 1 DB on the University of Tennessee. Couldn't tell you, in my opinion. So whoever you're lining up over him is a mismatch, in my opinion. And look, to be honest, your defensive scheme doesn't seem like it's going to be throwing any Bill Belichick type coverages out there where they're going to be like, oh, I've never seen that before. You're not going to have Spencer Rattler out there seeing ghosts. His O-line may make him get some PTSD. If not now, maybe next week. But you're going to have to bring some pressure. And if you're bringing pressure, that means you ain't got a lot of guys deep. So pick your poison in this game. Regardless, I think Spencer Rattler is going to lead this team to victory.
I like it. We got all the same picks, except I have Utah +3. You have OSU -3. We love it. Keep it going. Oh no, also you took Duke +6. I took Notre Dame -6. Our last thing today before we go into our draft, Zach Watts, our top 5 college football clocks on the stove Heisman rankings. I think our number 1's pretty unanimous. If we agree, it's Michael Penix.
Michael Penix.
Yeah,
Michael Penix. Yeah. Easy. I don't know why this is even a topic of conversation. Like, this shouldn't even be remotely close. Michael Penix is quite literally leading the most unstoppable team in college football right now.
Yeah, they are
disgusting. Like, now look, you can try to discredit it and say, well, oh, his weapons are really good. You couldn't name me any of those receivers last year. They weren't any finalists for any award.
And it's his coach's second year there. He came from Fresno State.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think every Indiana Hoosiers fan in the world wants to blow their brains out. Because they're like, we really had this kid. Oh my God. But Penix Jr., my computer just autocorrected it to Penis Jr., but we're not going to talk about that.
I'm number 2. I'm going to go probably Caleb Williams, USC.
Yeah, kind of hard to argue against that with the numbers he's put up this year. Yeah, look, I know the caliber of competition hasn't necessarily been there, but it will be, and things will stay the same. He's going to put up points for his squad. He's only going to continue getting better. And look, even against crappy competition, he still makes unreal plays. Like it's not like, oh, there's a receiver open by 40 yards. He underthrew him by 10 and the guy went open. No, he's hitting every guy on in stride on the dot. The dude doesn't miss. So that's kind of how I see it right now.
I want to say my number 3, but I want to look just to make sure I'm not forgetting any guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me
Yeah,
see.
I'm gonna rock with it. I'm gonna go Jordan Travis, number 3.
You're gonna say Travis?
Yeah, because I mean, who else? Bo Nix. I wouldn't put Bo Nix over him. They have Cam Ward. I wouldn't put Cam Ward over him. I wouldn't put Quinn Ewers over him.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that right now. Based off ESPN's projections, Bo Nix technically is the third right now, just based off points earned thus far through the season. But I'm still gonna have Travis in my 3 spot bias.
I think Travis beating LSU at a neutral site and at Clemson is better than what Bo Nix has done.
I agree, and I think another thing that's kind of hindering Travis right now is he's playing injured. They may not list him on the injury report, but if you've watched Florida State football games, his legs are not as much of a weapon right now.
Fucked. Yeah, one of
his ankle and shoulder are shot.
Yeah.
This is like whoever made FSU's schedule this year was a godsend, because the fact that they got their tough games out of the way and gave them a bye week, glorious.
Oh, they did it on purpose.
Yeah, but like exactly. So whoever made that, glorious job. Like perfect. Could not be any better. The team couldn't ask for a bye week more than right now, and they got it. So my number 3, I'm going to agree with you, is Jordan Travis. I think he's only going to continue to play better. And when his legs get more involved and Trey Benson gets it going more than he already has, I think this team is going to be unstoppable offensively. Their defense still has to step up in just a little bit for how I'd like it if they want to be a college football contender. But, they're Jordan Travis and this team is right there. Who is
you go first with your 4, because I want to just see what you say. You go first.
All right. My number 4, I will admit this is a little recency bias, but just based off what I've seen so far, I'm going to take the Pac-2 quarterback of Mr. Ward. I'm going to take Cam Ward.
I could do that. Yeah, I could do that for sure.
Yeah. So far this year, just under 1,400 yards, 13 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, and 109 rushing yards. Dude is
that Washington State rivalry game is going to be nuts.
They may score 8,000 points.
Yeah, that's going to be nuts. My number 5, and it's not really it's not bad, and it's not like a trend. I'm going to go Sam Hartman. I'm gonna put Sam Hartman. I just think he has the most touchdowns scored. He hasn't thrown a pick. I mean, dude, he's good, and he's throwing dots.
I agree.
I would put him or Quinn Ewers at 5.
My 5 is different.
Who's your 5?
My 5 is Keon Coleman. He's him and Xavier Legette can bounce between number 5, but we are talking about 2 receivers that quite literally are just dominating the college football world right now.
Zach, this is where we need to go into a conversation where it's like the Heisman is not the best player in college football. The Heisman is which quarterback is the most like fun to watch. And it sucks to say that, but that's what it is. You can't name a single guy on any list that isn't a quarterback. And 2 years ago, the best player in college football was Will Anderson, and he didn't win it. And I'm not saying that Keon's not the 5th best in the college.
I think it's impossible to win it as a defensive player anymore. I just think it's not going to happen.
I think it's impossible, nearly impossible to win it at any position other than quarterback. I think it's a popularity contest between quarterbacks now. It's not the Heisman does not represent the best player in college football. Like the most impactful player on a team is not represented by the Heisman anymore. It is the most. It's a popularity contest amongst quarterbacks.
Let me see something real quick. So, as of now, 6. How many more games do we have?
We're in week 5. There's 14 weeks. There's 12 games.
12 games total.
Yeah.
And
And then a
FSU's
conference championship and the postseason.
yeah. So Keon Coleman right
Postseason's
now.
not only conference championships involved. Postseason isn't.
Yeah. So right now, Keon Coleman has 6 tutties. If he finishes with like around 20, like that's unheard of from a receiver.
Yeah.
And the way Florida State's using him, they're literally telling teams like last game against Clemson. I don't know why they decided to, but they had 11 throws of 20 yards or more. They were just like, fuck it, Johnny Wilson or Keon Coleman one-on-one. That's a mismatch. Like you're getting head tapped. And sooner or later, Keon Coleman's going to catch it. And we've seen that week in, week out. Every week, it seems like he's putting up ridiculous plays. It just seems like it's undeniable. I think another thing that plays a huge part into the Heisman role, which players like Sam Hartman don't benefit from. Sam Hartman doesn't make any like Heisman plays. You know what I mean by that? Like every Heisman winner has their Heisman moment. They have a play during the season where you're like, that guy just won the Heisman. Like that guy is a Heisman player. Keon Coleman seems to have that every single week. Whether it's hurdling guys at Southern Miss, whether it's a 3-touchdown game against LSU, whether it's absolutely rounding people up and mossing people in the end zone against Clemson. Dude is constantly just dominating for Florida State. Now, obviously, having 2 Florida State players in the same Heisman race obviously is going to make my list a little skewed. Not going to be nice to look at on paper. But I think by the end of the year, this dude has to be in the contention. Has to be.
But for right now, who are we rocking with?
Yeah. If Texas goes undefeated, you got to say Quinn Ewers.
Right, just put Quinn Ewers in.
Fair enough.
No, honestly, we can just save the draft for tomorrow's pod with Phil.
Okay. Fair enough.
Bingo. There it is, episode 103. You got our pick.
Do we know what the draft? Do we know what the draft's going to be on tomorrow?
I was thinking we'll end the pod and we'll talk about it.
How about we let Phil decide?
We could do that.
Yeah, let's text Phil.
Yeah, I'll talk to Phil.
But Phil, you need to come up with something right now.
College football week 5.
You're up.